Damn it, John! Sabotaging my channel. Let's see how it is. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Spin It Reviews, and today is the big list, my top 15 favorite albums of 2015. Why top 15? Because I go 5 Force references beyond. I'm not going to throw out any honorable mentions here. Instead, I've actually made a topsters collage of my top 50 albums of 2015, which is linked in the description. Basically, the top 20 on there are ranked, and then the 3 rows below that are in their own little alphabetized tiers. I suggest checking that out after watching this, since I would recommend all those to an extent. Now, of course, there's only one thing going into what albums get on this list and what order they're in. Me, and absolutely nothing else. Now, sure, there are a couple on here that are on everyone else's list, but for the most part, these are the albums that I connected with the most, and would in turn recommend the most. It's pretty common sense, but unfortunately, some people need to be reminded about that. Keep in mind that albums I haven't done reviews on will be talked about longer, and for albums I have done full reviews on, those will be linked in the description, along with links to both my favorite single and favorite deep cut from each one of these albums. So with all that out of the way, let's get right into it with number 15, Courtney Barnett's Sometimes I Sit and Think, and Sometimes I Just Sit. Definitely one of the artists on here I can see people's opinions being split on. Either you like this Australian singer-songwriter's very dry, unassuming, kind of rambling delivery, or you don't. Personally, I'm on board. She takes these seemingly minute, mundane details and can turn them into a much more compelling statement that you might not have seen coming. Whether it's building pieces in a detailed picture of loneliness, or just a simple reminder that nobody really cares if you don't go to the party, there's something so refreshingly candid to me about Courtney's style. And it's backed by the perfect instrumentation, from upbeat garage rock with great riffs for days, to more subdued rock styles that can build incredibly on a couple tracks. Bottom line, if you're tired of all the eye-rolling hyperbole that can cloud up a lot of rock music, there's a lot you're gonna like in this. But if you want to look at the best of hard rock bombast, look no further than number 14, Coheed and Cambria's The Color Before the Sun. Wow, who knew that a prog rock band's key to progressing would be taking away the big concepts in 8-minute epics? Their extended trips into hard alt-rock, pop-punk, folk, and even 80s arena rock make their ever-present talent for hooky melodies and anthemic choruses a more natural fit than ever. Top it with Claudio's compelling personal narrative of a guy just getting it all together in the face of his first son being born, and we get easily Coheed's most universally appealing album to date. And speaking of veteran bands with unfairly passed over new albums due to more streamlined sound and a lack of lofty narratives, number 13 is the Decemberists' What a Terrible World, What a Beautiful World. If you're looking for folk rock with rich, full instrumentation, very thoughtful lyrics that put emphasis on storytelling and having just the right word choice, and a certain jaunty vintage pop influence, then there's a lot you're gonna like in this new Decemberists album. Plus, one track takes the situation of a guy begging a girl to let him go down on her and makes it one of the most adorable songs you'll hear all year. If that isn't talent, I don't know what is. Bringing it more to the modern day, number 12 is Robert DeLong's In the Cards. Here we get more of this singer-songwriter-producer's brand of catchy indie-tronica with a lot more clever lyricism than you usually get out of styles like this. From philosophical ponderings about fate to over-the-top satire of the music promotion process, there's just about something for everyone here who likes the good eccentric electropop tune. And like I said in the review, he definitely came out of 2015 the more respected DeLong. Let's keep this pop train rolling with number 11, Night Terrors of 1927's Everything's Coming Up Roses. I've talked about this duo a few times on this channel over the last year or so, but I'm glad to give these guys any attention I can. This is the kind of album where you could hit shuffle on any song here, and you'll not only love it, but be left wondering, how the hell is this not a huge hit? There's definitely that 80s revivalist flavor running through this thing, but it never gets overbearing or feels feels like they're just using nostalgia to mask a lack of good songwriting. This thing is pure ear candy start to finish, with tight, glossy instrumentation, emotive vocals, infectious hooks for days, everything you could want in this kind of record, really. Okay, top 10 time. So most of these albums so far, I've been able to give a full review to dissect. But sometimes an album comes out, you're just too busy with other releases at that time, before you know it, you're getting around to it at the end of December during the big catch-up, and of course, it's an album that's truly worth the full video. That album, of course, being number 10, No Closer to Heaven by The Wonder Years. I've been meaning to get into an album from this prominent pop-punk band for a couple years now, and I think I can finally see why so many bands are basically throwing the cheese out of the pop-punk pizza. It's because they're all trying to be the Wonder Years and failing miserably. I can't get enough of the way frontman Dan "Subi" Campbell crafts songs. It's less based on making the catchiest songs in the world, and more on passionately delivering some powerful stories, but they also know when to throw in some refrains for just begging to be sung along with, balancing pop-punk and emo influences perfectly, while throwing in a lot of their own unique sound too. There's also much more attention to dynamics than I've ever heard from this band before. A lot of the most hard-hitting songs on this record start off very restrained, very fragile, and just gradually get louder and louder until that crescendo hits that's just so cathartic. Especially when you look at the main attraction of The Wonder Years, the lyrics. Screw getting out of this town with your best friends in the front seat and your pizza in the back. This is an album filled with far more complex emotions, mostly centered around losing a friend to drug abuse and not knowing exactly who to point your finger at to let out your frustration. The friend for not getting it all together, their parents for scarring them both mentally and physically in their childhood, yourself for not doing enough to help them, the corrupt church for condemning them for the issues they're going through, or no one because that's how it was all meant to turn out. It's a very layered narrative with no clear answers, and it knows that. Personally, I've never dealt with a super close death like this before, but even then, this was a very emotionally gripping album, and if you are in that kind of position and looking for something to relate to, then I can't recommend this enough. And boy, if you thought that intricately emotional concept album from the alt-press scene was good, wait till you see this intricately emotional concept album from the alt-press scene. I'm saying number 9 is Blurry Face by 21 Pilots. Shut up, it was a good segue. While Vessel is still the album of theirs I put in my all-time favorites, Blurryface finds the musically indescribable duo refining, focusing, and maturing all around. We see more experimentation, from breakbeats to bassy 808s to straight-up piano rock love songs, along with their usual mishmash of styles from alternative hip-hop to ukulele pop that makes way more sense than it has any right to. And of course, they mash together insanely catchy pop songcraft with some extremely personal and complex themes relating to depression, anxiety, only this time we get more of a loose narrative going on, about taking that part of your brain with all the doubt, all the hate and frustration, personifying that and confronting it face to blurry face. How awesome is that in concept alone? It also plays out fantastically in execution, which I go much more into in my review of the album. The fact that there are 3 songs on this album that I just don't like, and it's still this high on the list, really says it all. Of course, they're not for everyone, I get that, but check them out anyway to sort of get your own take on them. I promise it's nowhere near as obnoxious as their fan base would lead you to believe. Okay, let's bring things down to earth a little with number 8, Born Cage's I'm Glad I'm Not Me. Now, like with Night Terrors of 1927, this is a very 80s influenced pop rock album from a group that should be way bigger than they are. The 2 things that set it apart for me, though, are 1, I connected with the lyrics more than I was expecting. It's got a very optimistic, hopeful vibe to it. The whole first half talking about feeling that need to get out of that place you've always been, even if it involves leaving some people behind in the process. And 2, there's definitely more of a rock edge going on here. Less capital cities and more bleachers, if you know what I mean, complete with some truly face-melting guitar solos. It's got some modern indie pop flair for sure, but if you just want more 80s pop rock revivalism at its absolute best, check this out. In at number 7 is Michael Cronin's MC3. With the follow-up to 2013's brilliant MC2, this rock singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist continues to be everything I want my own music to be and more. Michael balances crunchy alt and garage rock with some of the most natural pop sensibility you'll find in the style, as well as the addition of strings and horns for a certain extra dramatic flair. It all fits in with the excellent storytelling. It's sort of a mini concept album in the back half, which is essentially what I said about the Born Cages album, but with more of a Murphy's Law outcome. Very compelling stuff. Keeping on the singer-songwriter kick, we have James Bay's Chaos and the Calm. Check it out if you're looking for some high-quality, poppy folk rock done in the classic way, with an emotive voice, a good amount of variety, and familiar topics dealt with in a refreshingly mature way. I kinda hate the timing of when I got an interview with him, both because I, didn't know how to make a video look or sound good at that point, and because I have so much more to ask now that the full album's out. I'm still glad that I got what I did, and let's just hope he wins a couple Grammys. Okay, now we're getting into the real heavy hitters with number 5, What's Real by Waters. If you're looking for a comparison to go off of, basically take the vocals and peppy energy of Group Love, mesh it with the raw garage rock of early Cage the Elephant, pile on the introspection, and you have Waters in a nutshell. While I think every song here is great musically, what really pushed it over the top for me is the loose story told throughout, following a guy feeling stuck in a bad rut and finally getting the nerve to get righteously pissed at the people around him that have been harmful to him. A song like Over It conveys frustration more effectively in one song than most whiny breakup albums do over 40 minutes. Let's get number 4 out of the way, since it's easily the most obvious album on this list, Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. I'll freely admit, I fell behind in hip-hop this year, but I don't totally hate myself for it because this is one of the records I did check out. If it was just personal or just political, it would have still been great, but the way Kendrick meshes these subject matters together is the stuff that most preachy social commentary artists only dream of pulling off. This is one of those records where even if you're not a big hip-hop head, you can't deny its power and importance and musical inventiveness, unless of course you were just hoping for a whole album of Swimming Pools beats. Staying on the year-end staples, number 3 is Father John Misty's I Love You Honey Bear. One thing that I've always been intrigued by, as you saw with 21 Pilots and you will see with my number 1, is when the music and lyrics contrast completely and it still works, and few do this better than Father John Misty. Rich, lush instrumentation and his naturally soulful singing voice matched up with some brutally honest lyrics that can be simultaneously sweet, heartbreaking, cutting, and downright hilarious. Like with Courtney Barnett earlier, a lot of the appeal is in how candid and specifically blunt he can be with this set of extremely subversive love songs. But it never just turns into an episode of Jay Tillman Says the Darndest Things, since without going too far into it here, his commentary on both personal and more large-scale topics are very potent. It's not one of the more accessible albums on this list, but still a very rewarding listen. Coming in at number 2 is Florence The Machine's How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful. So I bought this CD in May, around the time it came out, and I just got around to it in December. This sat on my desk for 7 months straight without me listening to it. Yeah, I'm kind of an idiot. Now, I was a casual fan of Florence The Machine before. I liked a lot of her singles, thought Lungs was a pretty good indie pop record, but man, this takes it to a whole other level. Gone are the airy, ethereal instrumentals and metric butt tons of reverb. This Florence The Machine is forceful, upbeat, engaging, raw, and pretty lyrically nuanced as well. In a way, this is a better fit for Florence Welch's powerful voice than ever before, really, as she's going through a wide range of emotions following a dysfunctional relationship. Like with the Wonder Years record, there's no clear answer as to what she should be feeling in the face of all these events, and it's framed perfectly to capture that kind of crazed conflict. Alliteration. I'm not going to spend as much time delving into it as I'd like, since this video is already running pretty long, but I can't recommend this thing highly enough. It's not number 1, but it's easily the most timeless album on this list. You can show it to someone ages 7 to 70, and they'll find something to love in this record. So what could beat that? Well, my number 1 album of 2015, Big Data's 2.0. I swear this isn't just here because I interviewed him recently. Now, while I did give this album a very positive review when it came out, I still had a few nitpicks. But with repeated listens, those nitpicks are all things that I now love about this album, and I even found new things to love about nearly every song here. Florence might work from being timeless, but Big Data works from being almost aggressively timely. You guys might know this project for the alternative hit Dangerous, and similarly, this is an album of pop songs about the dangers of the internet. Now, on paper, this might sound a bit forced, a bit after school especially, but this is handled extremely well. Just looking on the surface, these are very well-crafted, fun, infectious, diverse pieces of electropop with a wide array of guest singers from Rivers Cuomo to Kimbra to Twin Shadow, who all kill it on their respective tracks. This is one of those rare cases where the name of the artist is the electronics music producer behind the scenes, with features on every track, but it actually feels cohesive with its own unique identity throughout the whole thing. One track's about the NSA trying to console people after the scandal, the next is a comment on the lies of internet dating, and the next shows an existential crisis of someone feeling a loss of purpose in the face of technology getting more and more advanced. I said in the review I would have preferred if this was a concept album, but if anything, this format only helps tackle more ground to be more effective in more areas. And it's not like it comes off as some warning about chat rooms in 2003 or something like that. This doesn't outright say the internet is bad, but it more gives some interesting commentary about these very modern topics in a way that I don't really see anyone else doing. And that's what I really love about this album, how unique and frankly necessary it is, and well deserving of the #1 spot. Phew, that was quite the list. But yep, that was my top 15 albums of 2015. Again, these are all completely subjective, so it makes no sense to get all pissed if your favorite isn't here. But I do want to know what your favorite albums of 2015 were. Give me like a top 5 or 10 in the comments. What albums do you agree on, disagree on, would you recommend? I'm really curious. Also, again, my top 50 collage is linked in the description. Just keep in mind that the order of a few of them did change between when I made that and when I recorded this video. Anyway, all that's left over now is my 2016 Spin It resolutions, so share this around with anyone who might be interested. Like my Twitter and Facebook pages in the description, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Spin It Reviews. Yes! I did it! And speaking of veteran, and with our number 8 album, Born Cages, I'm an idiot. Keeping on the singer-songwriter kick, we have, I cut my finger, or palm, I don't know what anatomy is. Singer-songwriter kick, we have I was too late with the flip. We have James Bay's Chaos and... Keeping on the singer-songwriter kick, I cut multiple fingers. Keeping on the singer-song... That was just way too ambitious.